Ready for some stories? Another episode of Doxie, Fozzy, and Friends. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of bath time fun. And since we're stuck at home and the boys haven't been able to go to the beach in a really long time, we thought we would pretend we're at the beach today. So we're in our tub here. We've got the beach scene behind us. We've got our kind of fern and palm tree sort of plants, and we're going to have a nice little beach day today. So Fozzy Bear is going to sit this one out. He's not much for bath time, so he's just going to hang out right there. And I'm going to be doing the bath for Doxie here. But since it's a little wet in here, I'm going to go ahead and take off my tags here. And we'll take off his bandana as well. And then we'll also have a little bit of story time. Take off his seashells. Alright. Doxie has been wanting a bath for quite a while. He really likes going and taking baths. He loves the way it makes his fur feel. He gets so soft. And we use a lot of different products for his fur and also for Fozzy's fur. So I have some of them here today so you can see if you're thinking about doing the same sort of things for your dog. It's always very good to bathe your dog regularly and brush them, especially if they're a long coat dog, like of course Doxie is being part Shih Tzu. So I use a lot of these Top Paw brands, which are readily available at PetSmart and other retailers. This particular one is Shed Control Shampoo, and it's apricot smell. So this is the one that I use for both of them because, as you can imagine, Fozzy also sheds quite a bit. And Doxie, even though he is a Shih Tzu, he doesn't shed in the traditional sense where it's all over your house, but he sheds where it stays on his body and makes mats. So it's little tangles of fur. So Shed Control Shampoo is very important for both of them. I also use the oatmeal baking soda shampoo, the oatmeal and aloe flavor, and I use this one for Doxie's coat. So it's odor control, shed repellent, and as well. So this is a really good one that I use for him. And then with Fozzy, because he's got such a light colored coat, I use the Bright and Brilliant Whitening Shampoo, lavender and rosemary for Fozzy. And unfortunately, we are out of my favorite product, which is the Shine Enhancing Detangling Rinse in Tropical Grapefruit. So, of course, none of these things are being sponsored, but just these are things that I really enjoy using. This one is really good, especially for Doxie, because after he comes out of the bath, his coat is pretty hard to manage. So this helps kind of make it where the coat is untangled and a little bit easier to work with for the brushing process. So it's a little wet to read books in the bath, but we're going to give it a try. We're going to start off with some that are ocean related. So this is Ibis, A True Whale Story by John Himmelman. And it says, to the people of the Provincetown Center for Coastal Studies, and of course to Ibis. Deep in a bay off the coast of an old fishing village lived a pod of humpback whales. One of the whales was a little calf named Ibis. Ibis was curious about everything in the ocean. One day she and her friend Blizzard went out swimming. They saw many different kinds of fish. The most interesting were the starfish. Ibis liked to look at them. There was something about their shape that made her feel good. As Ibis and Blizzard were drifting over a reef, they heard a strange humming noise. The two calves looked up to see something large and dark pass overhead. It was as big as a whale, but it wasn't a whale. The calves were frightened. They had never seen a boat before. They swam back to their mothers. The next day, Ibis went back to the reef. It wasn't long before another boat came along. Again, Ibis was scared, but she was curious too. She forced herself to swim to the surface. In the cool, hazy air, she saw several faces watching her. They didn't look scary. In fact, they looked very friendly. Ibis liked them. In the months that followed, Ibis and her friends lost their fear of boats. Boats came in many sizes and shapes, and the people in them always seemed to enjoy seeing the little whales. As Ibis grew up, she learned more about the sea. She knew what kinds of sharks to avoid, what food was the tastiest, and best of all, where to find the most dazzling starfish. Ibis never got tired of looking at starfish. People in their boats became a part of her life. Whenever a boat passed overhead, she swam to the top to say hello. One evening, Ibis and Blizzard saw a school of fish swimming around the bottom of a ship. Maybe there was something good up there to eat. They went to find out. Suddenly, Ibis was caught in a fishing net. She fought to get free, but the more she struggled, the more tangled up she became. Finally, she broke loose, but part of the net was caught in her mouth and wrapped around her tail. Oh no, that's bad, huh? Blizzard swam off to find help. Ibis was confused and hurt. She wanted to get away, far from people in their boats and nets. Slowly and painfully, she made her way toward the deep ocean. Many weeks passed, and Ibis grew very ill. The net in her mouth made it hard for her to eat, and every time she went to the surface for air, the net cut into her tail. But if she didn't get air every half hour, she would die. Winter was coming, and it was time for the whales to move to warmer waters, but Ibis felt too weak to make the long journey. Instead, she turned back toward the coast. It was so hard for her to swim, she could barely keep moving. Ibis was about to give up. Then she saw a familiar shape. It was Blizzard. Blizzard saw that Ibis needed help. Gently, Blizzard pushed her to the surface so she could breathe. Suddenly, the water was filled with sounds of boat engines. The whales saw two small rafts and a boat circling them. Blizzard and Ibis tried to get away fast, but Ibis wasn't quick enough. The boats rushed toward her before she could dive. The people in the boats began to attach large floats to the pieces of net that were hurting Ibis. Blizzard stayed nearby, circling the boats nervously. Because of the floats, Ibis could not dive. She began to panic, but she did not have the strength to fight. When the boats came in closer, a person reached into the water. Ibis stared at the person's hand. The hand reminded her of something she loved very much. She began to feel better. And it looks like a starfish. Yeah. Soon many hands dipped into the water. Ibis felt them tugging at the lines of the net. Moments later, the lines fell away and she was free. Ibis blew a big spout from her blowhole as if to say, "Thank you, thank you." Then she dived deep into the water. For the first time in many weeks, she felt no pain. She felt wonderful. Blizzard joined her. Then the two whales popped back to the surface for one more look. The people were waving their starfish-shaped hands. Ibis knew the hands had helped her, and that people were still her friends. Soon Blizzard and Ibis were leaping and diving with the other whales, far away in the warm waters where they would spend the winter together. The end. Okay, well, that was a good story. And that's actually a true story that happened, and they were able to help her out. And that's good. Okay, so now we're going to go back to our bath time. Start Doxie off with some oatmeal baking soda shampoo. So I usually put some all the way down his back, from the top of his head towards the base of his tail, and then rub it in real good. Now, I don't always go into the bath with him, but sometimes I do. And a lot of times I do it from the outside of the bath. And we have a smaller bath too, if we're just doing Doxie and not both of them. Because 3 of my doggies are small. And then of course Fozzy is big. You want to get a nice lather going and get your fingers deep into that coat. My starfish-shaped hands, deep into your coat. I like to massage right behind his ears. He gets mats there pretty good, and under his neck. And then if I need more, like on his underbelly, I'll put some in my hands here. And I'll go underneath and keep rubbing it in here. And underneath his underarms, that's an important spot. Oh, thank you. And every now and then we'll dump him a little bit. Put some water in there so we can lather it up a little bit better. Get a little bit more on his feet. And then we'll do the back end. And on his feet, he tends to get mats between his toes. So I always make sure to put my thumbs right in between his toes and in his little hands here. And rub it real good on all of his feet. And while I'm rubbing my hands all over his coat, I'm feeling for anything weird. It's kind of like a pre-vet check. So if there's maybe a bump or a lump that I haven't felt before, because he has a couple warts under there. You know, there's actually one under his underarm. So I'm feeling if there's anything that's unusual, you know, or sore spots or anything like that. So if there's anything that's not quite right, then I can take him to the vet and be like, hey, is this a problem? Do we need to get treatment for this? As Doxie especially, he is 10 years old now. You know, an older dog, so I want to make sure that we still keep him healthy and happy. Okay, go ahead and lower him down and get the other. Alright. We're doing the back half now. I just kind of pick up the back half and rub it in real good here. Make sure to get under his tail and all the way down his little fluffy tail. Rub it in real good. And then down and get the underneath in his back feet. And his other back foot. Work in between those toes. nice and deep. And all nice and lathered up. Okay. You're looking good, Doxie. So now we'll go ahead and rinse off this shampoo. Just gonna splash over the top of him. You're gonna splash. Okay, he shakes it off. Good boy. Good job. And that helps me, and it helps him get some of that off of his coat. Alrighty. And we'll do our next story now, in between our shampoos. We're only going to read part of this book. It's called Life in the Islands by Roseanne Hooper. And this is a neat book. It has a lot of different pictures about islands, some cool stuff, where they're located, different things about different kinds of islands, some of the animals that are on islands. So you get a chance to read it. It's a pretty neat book, but we're just going to read this little story here at the end. It's called The Magic Fish Hook. Now, if you've ever heard of Maui from Moana, the Disney movie, this is actually the story of Maui. So before the Disney movie, this was actually the story that it was based on. The Magic Fish Hook. For thousands of years, people have told stories about the world around them. Often these stories try to explain something that people do not really understand, like how the world began. This story, told by the Maori people of New Zealand, is about the creation of their island. Maui had been adopted as a baby by the god of the sea and brought up under the waves. When he was grown up, he left the sea and went back to the land where he had come from. He was always boasting to his brothers and his wife that, because of his upbringing, he was half a god. But Maui was very lazy. While his 4 brothers went out on their fishing boats every day to catch food for their families, Maui would go out only once a week. The rest of the time he lay around at home, getting under his wife's feet. "Oh, Maui," she would sigh after she tripped over him for the 10th time. "Why are you so lazy? Why can't you act more like your 4 brothers?" What an unreasonable thing to say. Maui might lay around most of the time, but on the days he did go out fishing, he had extraordinarily good luck, for the fish just seemed to jump into his boat. He caught more fish in one day than his other brothers caught in a week. So whenever his impatient wife began to complain, Maui would just nod and busily start to mend his nets. If his wife happened to come back a few minutes later, she would find Maui in his favorite spot again, dozing in the warm sunshine. One day, however, one of the 4 brothers overheard Maui's wife complaining. "Call yourself half a god," she sneered. "Well, you're certainly only half a man." Ooh. The brother ran off and told the others, who thought it was a great joke. They all began to tease Maui about being only half a man. Maui was absolutely furious. "I'll show them," he stormed, and went off to a secret spot in the hills. There he made a bone fish hook, carving it with the skill he had learned under the sea. When it was ready, he polished the fish hook and whispered magic words over it. The movie Maui has a magic fish hook too. The next morning, as his brothers were getting ready to go fishing, Maui came up to them. "I think I'll come with you today," he said casually. So they all set out to sea in their boats. A little way out from the shore, the brothers stopped rowing. Maui looked surprised. "The warm shallows here are full of fish," they explained. "Who needs fish? I want to go much further out and catch something much better than fish," Maui boasted. Maui's brothers were curious to find out what he was talking about, so they all paddled farther out into the sparkling ocean. "Right," said Maui, putting down his paddle. "I think it's about here." With that, he dangled his fish hook over the edge of the boat. He felt around for a few minutes and then pulled. The line went taut. Maui's 4 brothers gasped. Maui pulled and pulled at the line. What on earth could Maui catch out here? As he tugged, the ocean began to roll and swell, as if some enormous thing was slowly rising up from the depths of the seabed. Maui's brothers grabbed the sides of their boats to stop from falling out. Then, all of a sudden, they and their boats were resting on dry land. Maui had dragged the whole island from the bottom of the sea. I knew it was around here somewhere, said Maui, climbing out of his boat. I must just go and apologize to the god of the sea for taking some of his land. And he set off, striding across the grass. Maui's brothers sat in their boats with their mouths open. Then they began to get out and put their feet gingerly down on the turf. I declare myself king of this new country, said the brother who had stepped out first. Nonsense, said another. I should be king. I'm the eldest. Each of the brothers thought he should be king. Soon a huge fight developed. The brothers threw rocks and clods of earth at each other. They stamped hard on the ground. Soon the new island was split in two. Where rocks had fallen, mountains sprang up, and where the brothers had stamped lay lakes. Tiny islands dotted the coast, where clods of earth had fallen into the sea. New Zealand had formed into the islands we know today. The end. Pretty interesting, huh? This myth about how their islands have formed. All from a big old fight among brothers. Okay. So next up we're going to do the shed control shampoo on Doxie. We're going to do basically the same thing we did before. So from the back of his head, down his body. Smells so nice. Apricot. Yum, yum. And I'm getting him all nice and lathered up here. Oh, this will be so good. Here, wait. I want you to get tall enough so they can see. And you can see nice white fluffy lather. You almost look like Fozzy Bear with that color, huh? Working it into his coat. And it's a lot easier now that we've done that other shampoo. And it's going in pretty well. Same spots. I'm going to massage behind his ears. I'm going to do underneath his arms and his belly. And get a little bit more shampoo we did before. And get it on his feet, between his toes. Good for the front half here. Carefully do the top of his head. I don't want to get it in his eyes. And a little bit underneath his snout too. Those areas. Good boy. There, I'm going to get the back end here with that shampoo. And there's the tail. Looking good there, buddy. A little bit more on those toesies. Okay, looking good. Okay, so we had our second rinse now. Feeling good here. Look at that. Good job, boy. Alright. We'll do our next book here. This is another one we're only going to read part of it. So this is Eric Carle's Animals. And again, it's got a lot of really great stories in here. These are pretty short ones, but it just includes a quote and some beautiful pictures. Of course, Carle is known for making beautiful pictures. So I'm just going to do the ones that have some ocean animals. And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind. That's from the Bible. That's the front half of the whale. And for the back half of the whale, I throw myself to the left, I turn myself to the right. I am the fish who glides in the water, who glides, who twists himself, who leaps. Everything lives, everything dances, everything sings. That's from African Pygmy. And we have leaping flying fish, dancing for me in my boat as I sail for home. It's a haiku from Kosu. The octopus. Tell me, O octopus, I beg, is those things arms or is they legs? I marvel at the octopus. If I were thou, I'd call me us. From Ogden Nash. And we have sea turtle. Paddling, we saw the turtle, saw its eyes open, its flippers outstretched as it floated. Seawater lapped at its shell, spreading across its back. Australian Aborigine. Seal lullaby. Oh, hush thee, my baby. The night is behind us, and black are the waters that sparkled so green. The moon o'er the combers looks downward to find us, at rest in the hollows that rustle between. Where billow meets billow, there soft be thy pillow. Ah, weary wee flitterling, curl at thy ease. The storm shall not wake thee, no shark overtake thee. Asleep in the arms of the slow swinging seas. Rudyard Kipling. He's the one that made the Jungle Book and several other cool books. Narwhal. Around their igloo fires with glee, the Eskimos tell tales of the narwhal. Listen and you'll see the unicorns of Wales through frosty waves off Greenland's coast. Majestically advance, and like a knight come forth to joust, hold high its wary lance. X.J. Kennedy. The barracuda. Slowly, slowly he cruises, and slowly, slowly he chooses which kind of fish he prefers to take this morning. Then, without warning, the barracuda opens his jaws, teeth flashing, and with a horrible, horrible grinding and gnashing, devours 100 poor creatures and feels no remorse. It's no wonder, of course, that he really ought to perhaps change his ways, but, as he says with an evil grin, it's not actually my fault, you see. I've nothing to do with the tragedy. I open my mouth for a yawn, and ah me, they all swim in. John Gardner. And they eat all kinds of fishies. Electric eel. Some think electric eel lacks looks. Some others find it stunning. A homegrown battery it packs to keep its shocker running. While you could light all New York streets and skyscrapers and stuff with one electric eel alone, if it were long enough. X.J. Kennedy. Pretty cool. We might get to read a few more of those if we do some more animal themed ones later. So Doxie has had his 2 different kinds of shampoos. We've had the rinse between each one of his washes. We had a little bit of time where he's been sitting out on my lap a little bit. So we're doing pretty good. So we got a little bit more to rinse off right here. We might have to do one more rinse with Doxie. thing that I wanted to show you before we get out of the tub today is something really cool, and that's life vests that they make for dogs. So if you ever do take your dog to the beach, of course, right now we're just in our upstairs bathroom. We're not at the beach. We can't go to the beach right now because of this whole situation that we're in right now. But we can pretend that we're at the beach. But if you ever get to take your dog to the beach, a good thing to do is to get a doggy life jacket. And they sell a lot of them in the stores. This one's Doxie, so it's a little one. And then Fozzy has a bigger one, which I'll show in just a minute. And what's cool about these, there's a lot of different ones that they sell, is it has this, which goes underneath your dog's chin. And that will keep your dog's head up. So if he's, having trouble swimming, if the waves start coming up, it'll keep his head above water so he can breathe. So that's really important. And it's a flotation device, just like if you were going out on a boat or something and you wanted to make sure that you were safe. It would keep you afloat. You have a little life jacket. So this is a dog life jacket. It goes around just like this. This goes underneath his chin, and you can see that's right underneath there. Then it's got a little buckle here. Snap it into place. And then lastly, it has two clips that go underneath his body to attach it. Alright, now he is safe and secure, so if he were to go out swimming, he would stay afloat. So let's see if he'll swim. Here, boy, swim to me. Come on. Oh, good job. Good boy. Oh, you're such a good swimmer. You're such a good swimmer. Okay, can you do it one more time? Let's go back over here. Let me get right over here. Okay, come swim to me. Come on, come swim. Good boy. Good job. Good boy. All right, you did it. You want to do one more time? Okay. Go right over here. There we go. You ready? You ready? Okay, come through. Oh, there's my boy. You're a champion dog paddler. Good boy. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Okay. Good job, good job. And swim. I'm swimming. Good boy, good job. All right. Of course, Doxie is a champion dog paddler right here. He's very good at it. Okay, so I'm going to put Fozzy with his life vest on just so you can see how it looks. It's a twin to Doxie's, it's just a lot bigger. Good boy. You can see this is the part that goes under his chin. And this is the part that goes under his body. Alright, and sit. Good boy. The last book we're going to read is Time Cat by Lloyd Alexander, and learn the continuing stories of Jason and his time-traveling cat, Gareth. Where we left them was in Diane's bedroom, where there was a snake coming out, scaring her, and it was in Ireland of 411 AD. So now we are on chapter 7, which is called Shoe Cat. Jason froze where he stood. The only movement in the room was the black arrow of Gareth leaping forward. Before the serpent could strike, Gareth caught it behind its flat skull. The serpent's tail lashed out and wound around Gareth's body. Over and over, the fighters rolled across the floor. Gareth was on his back now, his hind paws furiously kicking. Once the serpent tried to raise itself, as if to smash the cat against the floor. Gareth hung on with tooth and claw. The serpent thrashed a circle on the chamber. Jason caught his breath as he saw Gareth tumble head over tail, For an instant, the serpent almost shook itself free, but Gareth still gripped its neck. Suddenly, it was over. The serpent went lifeless as a piece of rope. Even then, Gareth did not loosen his jaws. With eyes blazing, he crouched, moaning and growling. As Jason saw him at the moment, Gareth was a wild creature of the forest once again, a creature of slashing claws and sharp teeth, victorious over a deadly enemy. Torchlight flooded the room. In the doorway stood King Mulek, his red hair flying about his head, his sword in his fist. Behind him crowded the palace guard. Diane, who had been too frightened even to whimper during the fight, burst into tears. While King Mulek comforted the sobbing Diane, Jason ran toward Gareth. The cat shook himself from his shoulders down to the tip of his tail, then blinked up at Jason. Gareth had dropped the serpent with a disdainful toss of his head. Very calmly, he began to wash. Still puffy with sleep, looking more like a porridge than ever, Lugad rolled into the chamber. "What's this?" he asked. "A nightmare? Is that all? The girl's been sleeping in the moonlight." "Nightmare!" roared Mulek, picking up the limp body of the serpent and thrusting it at Lugad. "I'll nightmare you. Do you call this moonlight?" Lugad glanced at the serpent distastefully. "An evil spirit," he said. "An evil spirit if I ever saw one." King Mulek turned redder than his hair. "Wishaw, man, if I wrapped this around your neck and pulled a little, you'd not call it a spirit." "This is the ghost of a serpent," said Lugad peevishly, looking down his nose at Mulek, and at the same time moving away a little, just in case the king had any intention of carrying out his threat. "I don't know how many times I have to tell you. I have driven the real ones away." "Then," cried Mulek, "you mean to say, standing there with your great bald head, that a daughter of mine has been in danger of her life from the bite of a ghost?" Lugad shrugged. "That's the way of it with ghosts. But pay it no mind. I'll put a spell on the chamber. She'll have no more danger this night." "Cast your spells on the wind," shouted Mulek, "for all the good they do. Why, this little black cat here has more power in one whisker than you have in that barrel of fat." "Beware!" Lugad raised his hand in the air. "'Tis death to mock a magician." "True," said Mulek with a sour grin. "But if you're as much a magician as I think you are, I'll have no fear." Lugad snorted, turned on his heel, and pushed his way out of the chamber. King Mulek turned to Jason and Gareth. "You two shall sit at my right hand," he said. "The finest smith in Erin shall make thrones of silver for you. The harp of Dubthatch shall sing of a magician greater than Lugad." Next day, Mulek indeed seated Jason and Gareth on silver thrones. Dubthatch sang a song of praise. Diane looked at Jason admiringly, while Lugad, banished to the far end of the table in the draughts and smoke, muttered angrily to himself. That was not all. The red-bearded king asked Jason and Gareth to stay and be his court magicians. "But we can't," Jason began. "You don't understand." "Wishaw!" cried Mulek. "I understand magic when I see it. It's settled then." He turned away and would listen to none of Jason's protests. After the meal, as they were leaving the hall, Diane came to walk beside Jason. "I heard what my father said," she whispered excitedly. "Isn't it wonderful? You'll be much better than Lugad. His magic is so weary and dreary." "You don't understand either," Jason said in despair. "I'm not a magician and neither is Gareth." "You said he was." "Yes, but not the kind you mean. I can't explain any more." Of course, Diane nodded knowingly. "It's not wise for magicians who boast of his skill. The little people might hear and be jealous." "It isn't the little people." Diane put a finger to Jason's lips. "Don't mention their name or we'll have a plague of them." "I'm not worried about that," Jason said. "I'm worried about what to tell your father. He just won't listen to me." "If you refuse," Diane warned, "he'll be furious. And for the matter of that, so will I." She flashed her eyes at him. "If you won't be court magician instead of that silly Lugad, I'll not speak to you again." Jason left Diane at the palace. Still wondering what to tell Mulek, he made his way to the cow pen to find Sukat. The Welshman was sitting on the top rail of the enclosure. He waved at the boy, bent down, and picked up Gareth and held him in his lap. Sukat listened carefully while Jason told him the problem. "I think you're right," Sukat said. "There can only be trouble if you or your cat start playing magician. Better leave all that business to Lugad." But didn't you say his spells are useless, Jason said. His spells are, Sue Cat agreed, but not his knowledge. The thing you must understand about these magicians is this. They really know a great deal. They know the stars, how to figure out the seasons. They know farming and planting, all the ways of the woods and animals. Some of them can even put a man to sleep just by looking at him in the eye. The trouble comes when they pretend that they work by magic instead of by nature. Lugad isn't all fool, Sue Cat went on. He wants people to believe in the magic part of what he does, because then they'll stay afraid of him. It's a way of keeping his job, and you can't blame him too much. It's a shame, though. If he'd been living in Britain now, he'd have made a fine, learned man. We have the Christian faith in my land, and he could have had an education from the church as I did. But there is none of that in Erin, only magic and superstition and the little people under every blade of grass. No, Sue Cat sighed, this is far from Britain. If Britain is civilized now, Jason asked, why did you come here? Come? Sue Cat smiled sadly. I did not come, boy. I was taken. I shall always remember the night that King Niall of 9 hostages raided our coast. There were 3 of us in the house, my 2 sisters and me. They took us all to sell as slaves. Oh, I was a fighter in those days, but they were too many. They tied us up, carried us to the boat, and sailed away. My sisters are in Erin somewhere, Sue Cat continued. I pray they still live. Mulek bought me to herd his cows. That was 6 years ago. Why don't you escape? Asked Jason. They never seem to lock you up. When the time comes, Sue Cat said, I may go from this place. But look you, this idea is in my mind, that underneath it all there is some purpose, some reason why I should be here. What it may be is hidden from me now. When I understand it, perhaps then I shall go, or perhaps I shall stay. The herdsman was silent after that, his face lost in a dream, his deep-set eyes looking far past Jason toward the hills. Finally, Jason spoke. I still don't know what to do about Mulek. The king, said Sue Cat. Oh, as far as that goes, do nothing at all. Mulek changes his mind from one moment to the next, and he doesn't remember half of what he says. Right now he's angry at Lugad because of the serpent, but Mulek always agrees with the last person who talks to him. Lugad is a clever one, he'll work him around, so my advice is just stay out of it and he'll forget the whole thing. Sue Cat, Jason realized, was quite right. In the hall at the next meal, Lugad had his old place at the table. The magician and the king talked earnestly back and forth, paying no attention to anyone else. Diahan was so annoyed at Jason's letting his opportunity slip that she refused to speak to him, except to remind him several times that she wasn't speaking to him. Lugad busied himself with preparations for the midsummer fires, ordering parties of men to carry straw and wood to the mountaintop. The fires, Jason learned, were supposed to guarantee a good harvest for the village. A lot of spells had to be cast over them, and Lugad was making a very grand thing of it. Jason and Gareth were completely forgotten. You see what I mean? Sue Cat asked when Jason spoke to him again. There's no need of magic fires for a good crop. If the farmers plant their seed as they should and the weather holds, the harvest will be good. If not, Sue Cat shrugged, no fire on earth can help them. If they'd pay more attention to the rats that eat their grain, he went on, they'd be better off. Gareth could help with rats, Jason said. He's done in every place he's been, and he's very good at it. There's only one of him, Sue Cat said. 100 cats would hardly be enough. Every village in Erin has the same trouble, and it can only get worse. There will soon be famines and starvation such as no man can remember. Then what good will Lugad and his fires be? Jason agreed, but that night, when the fires were lit, he also had to admire. He had never seen such a blaze. The whole mountaintop flamed. Jason, Sue Cat, and Gareth perched on the cow pen railing to watch the ragged sheets of orange scorch the black night. Soon the fires of neighboring villages appeared on other hilltops. The fires had hardly begun when Jason saw Diahan running toward the pen. Her face was scratched with brambles, her white robe torn. Sue Cat jumped down and hurried to meet her. Little princess, he called, I thought you were in the hills with your father. I was, Diahan gasped, but I had to get away. It's terrible what they're going to do. It was Lugad's idea. She began to sob. Calm yourself, girl. What's this thing you say about Lugad? He's been talking to my father, Diahan said. Lugad still says all the serpents and rats are ghosts. He says the only way to rid of them is to send another ghost after them. I should have known Lugad would think of something like that, Sue Cat said angrily. If he wants to send 2 ghosts, Diahan's lips trembled. the ghosts of a boy and a cat. I don't need to guess who that boy and cat might be, Sue Cat said grimly. Diane turned to Jason. You must go. You dare not wait. Lugad's coming down now with his men. They want to wrap you up both in leaves and throw you to the fire. Sue Cat, she hurried on. You must show them the path through the woods, quickly, and you must not come back. If Lugad ever found out you helped them escape, he'd have you killed. But what about you, little princess? The herdsman asked. I am my father's daughter, said Diane proudly. Lugad would not dare harm me. Only hurry, it will be too late. Diane took Jason's arm. Farewell to you, boy, and to that dog or cat, whichever you call it. The princess hastily kissed him on the cheek. As she lowered her eyes, Jason saw tears on the long lashes. I didn't mean what I said about not speaking to you, Diane whispered, and I'm not happy to see you go. By dawn, Jason, Gareth, and Sue Cat were well into the forest and far beyond the reach of Lugad. They had walked most of the night in silence. Sue Cat had been wrapped in his own thoughts, and Jason, to his surprise, found himself missing the golden-haired Diane. Sue Cat was the first to speak. It is a curious thing, he said, but I have come to love this country even as a slave. Perhaps that was the reason for my captivity, that I should learn to know Erin and its people and to love them. I understand now what I must do. I shall go into the world, Sue Cat went on, perhaps even as far as Rome itself. I shall learn and bring back what I learn. There is no need for magicians then. What about the serpents and the rats? Asked Jason. The serpents of war and ignorance are worse than those that creep along the ground, Sue Cat said. These serpents are the ones I shall drive out. And as far as the rats are concerned, he smiled, reached down, and patted Gareth. I shall bring some of these little creatures with me. The travelers stopped in a clearing. Striking a flint, Sue Cat made a small fire of twigs. Rest now, he said. We have a long journey. The Welshman stretched out beside the fire and soon fell asleep. Still wakeful, Jason and Gareth wandered toward the fringe of trees. It's strange, Jason said, the way Sue Cat was talking. He made me think of someone else. It was a saint. Someone else? Gareth said. No, there's only one man like Sue Cat. Don't you remember? Sue Cat told you he had another name. It's Patrick. The fire burned out. From the embers, one last flame and a wisp of smoke rose into the sunlight. Ooh, pretty cool. Alright, so next up we're in Japan, 998 AD. We'll see what happens next. So the last part of our program are questions from our audience. Does anyone have any questions for our boys today? Okay, how long does it take to dry them? Well, Doxie actually takes longer to dry after a bath than Fozzy does. That's because he's got a lot more hair and thick layers, even though Fozzy's bigger. So it usually takes about an hour, blow drying and, brushing and that kind of thing. So we're actually going to show that for our next session. Any more questions? Have they ever been to the beach? Yes, they have. They've only been once though. So it was a really neat day. I took both Doxie and Fozzy, and actually their Doxie's brother Tiger and Doxie's mom Rita. So all four of them went to the beach, and they had a really good time. Now this was before they had their life jackets, so I had to make extra sure that everybody was on leash and was safe in case the waves come, but they really enjoyed it. Doxie preferred to stay on the sand, but Fozzy was chasing the waves, so it was neat. Any other questions? Well, I hope to see you guys soon in the next one, and we look forward to seeing you in person very soon. Have a good day.